very special edition live from the Bitcoin conference in fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, here at the Rumble studio, right in the middle of the expo hall, middle of the action. I am very excited to be joined by a special guest, the CEO of the Digital Chamber, one of the leading voices in Bitcoin and in crypto, the wonderful Cody Carbone. Welcome to the Peer-to-Peer Pod. How's the conference been going for you?
Thanks for having me, Brian. The conference is awesome. I mean, it's hard to beat Las Vegas. It's hard to ever beat the Bitcoin conference. The buzz has been insane. We've got, I think, 35,000 people here today.
35,000 people.
It's insane. We've got the vice president spoke this morning. We've got senators, members of Congress. Can't beat it.
Yeah. I was just listening to the Trump sons, Eric and Don Jr. I love how much everybody is just like bull posting, bull talking. Like everybody's so bullish. JD Vance, the vice president, spoke this morning, talked about how, he owns Bitcoin. He believes in it as a strategic asset for the country. Ended up getting a standing ovation at the end of his speech.
What a world. Imagine this 3 years ago at the Bitcoin conference. We're in Miami. I think we maybe got Senator Lummis there, and that was it. And now you've got the entire president's family. You got the president last year, vice president this year. You've got the administration. It's incredible turnaround, 180.
Well, to be fair, if President Biden or Vice President Harris had showed up at this event, they would not have received a very warm welcome. But that's to be expected when,
telling. They never would have come.
No, they would have never.
Invited.
Yeah. But they would have never come. 35,000 people. It's unreal. Balancing the networking, the panels, a lot of education, a lot of interesting conversations. Too much blackjack. Not enough sleeping.
It's Vegas, baby.
Yeah, it is Vegas, baby. Have you gotten into any partying? We'll get back to the policy discussion in a second. Best parties, worst parties, anything in between.
So the coolest thing happened to me last night. I was at a party in Tao, and Scottie Pippen walked in.
No way.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I'll show you a picture after. I got a picture with Scottie Pippen. He's tokenizing Chicago Bulls merchandise from when he was playing. So he's got 90s game balls, championship rings from the 90s that he's tokenizing, new project. It's cool. I was like, I'm a huge basketball fan. I was like, Scottie Pippen's walking. I don't even care about the Bitcoin conference, wherever. I'm getting a selfie. I'm fanboying hard.
Yeah.
So that was the coolest by far.
That's awesome.
It was awesome.
That's so good.
It's Vegas.
Yeah.
How about you?
So, fun moment. There's a lot. The one that jumps out in my mind at the moment was I was at a reception at a nightclub because it's Vegas and every reception is in a nightclub. And I look I'm at the bar getting a drink, talking to a bunch of suits and then wacky Bitcoiners. And I see in the corner, there's this very dark corner with a single light coming down and surrounded by mirrors. It looked like a John Wick movie. And who is it but Senator Bill Haggerty? So he comes out, and I was like, I thought you were the guy that John Wick is coming to talk to in this club right now. And he ended up, chatting us up. We know him, of course, he's a great guy, but talked to us about his deal of acquiring a soccer club.
Wow.
And how that went. And then we ended up talking about how when I worked for Secretary Mnuchin and they put his name on the money and the very famous picture of him and his wife, Louise, as the Bond villains holding the sheet of dollar bills. We got into Fort Knox and the Gold Reserve. It was crazy, wide-ranging, but in a nightclub in Vegas. And I was like, well, Senator, you still got it, baby.
Yeah,
Because we're at a club having drinks in Vegas.
Yeah.
So.
It's surreal. I mean, going out, last night I was at a nightclub and in walks Congressman Byron Donalds running for governor of Florida, hopefully the next governor of Florida.
Yeah.
And he's just sitting there and he's like, who should I meet in Bitcoin? I just want to meet, the leading faces and voices in Bitcoin. I'm like, what a world.
When I started with Riot a few years ago, I think you and I and some others obviously saw where things were headed, that this is kind of the future. The change is, I used to get a lot of weird looks of are you sure?
Oh, I still get them from my wife.
I
was are you sure you know what you're doing?
Yeah. Bitcoin, what are you doing? And now, walking through the airport, like coming to a conference like this, like people come up to me and are like, "Hey, love what you're doing. You guys are, you know, basically mainstreaming the industry and helping people understand it." And so it went from people giving me like the hairy eyeball to people being like, "I want to shake your hand."
Bitcoin's never been so popular.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a 180. Like in my personal life, friends, family. When I told them I was going to work for the Digital Chamber and I was going to go advocate on Bitcoin, like what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Why would you want to do that? And now we've seen it in DC, where members of Congress are calling us, you and I, for the first time, saying, "How can I lead?
Yeah.
What, like, do you have bills? What can I do? Because I want to be in Bitcoin. I see this is where the future is going." The president, thank you to him, because I think he's been the catalyst for a lot of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've seen it here at the conference. Like, everyone wants to be involved in this now. There's an energy around it, a buzz around it we've never seen before.
Well, and so on that point, like when there's a group of us in the Bitcoin mining industry or industry, as the president likes to say, and we met with him during the campaign, and from 2019, I think it was, you guys have framed in your office that tweet, where he said Bitcoin's a scam. To now, his evolution on it. When we met with him, one of the first things he said was, "I understand now why everybody is looking for these alternatives, why they want freedom. I think the financial system's corrupt. People got debanked. Too many people close to me have had their bank accounts closed for political reasons, things like that." And I think, the Canadian truckers is probably the most prominent example but that opened a lot of people's eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Another thing that opens people's eyes is obviously the opportunity for wealth and hedging against inflation. And Bitcoin being over 100,000 certainly helps. I think, like, members of my family have started to, like, at family holidays, will be like, "I didn't used to really care about this, but
I used to get the eye rolls.
Can you teach me?"
I used to get the eye rolls at Thanksgiving, and now I've got my grandmother saying, "Wait a second, I see six figures there. How do I get involved?"
Yeah.
The big one you hit on, Operation Choke Point, I think got so many folks saying, "All right, what we're doing right now is corrupt. We're debanking a legitimate industry. This can't be the way forward. I want to learn more about what this industry is doing." I think that opened up a lot of people's eyes. I'm glad to see that's what was one of the catalysts for the president.
Yeah, no, that was like one of the first things he said.
Yeah.
We talked about energy and how Bitcoin relates to energy as well, and some other issues, but that was like the first thing that signaled to us that it's not just political opportunism, although there is political opportunity.
Yes.
He saw, look, I believe Bitcoin and crypto voters swung the. I think there were enough voters in that election who came out for Trump who would not have otherwise voted, or who maybe were otherwise affiliated with Democrats or whatever. I actually think it probably was enough votes to swing the election. So there was political opportunity for sure. And he's a politician. But the fact that was what he led with showed me that, like, he's a true believer.
Yeah.
And he actually converted on values as well as politics.
Which is fantastic. I mean, you're right. The political opportunity was there. I think what so many people underestimated during the election was that crypto voters are super passionate. They're single issue voters. And
they're lunatics.
Oh, yeah, they're lunatics.
In the best
they're
way.
Crazy. Of course, seeing them around us right now. And they came out in troves. And obviously, there was an opportunity there. Once Trump got involved, and was it May of last year in a campaign, it opened up, I think, so many voters' eyes and said, I may have never voted Republican, but I'm going to vote Republican on this issue. And so that was great. But to hear that he's swung on values as well and substantive policy, and we've seen that play out from the administration. I mean, personnel is policy. We always talk about it. The amount of people he's put in the high-profile positions that are pro-Bitcoin has made an incredible change in the administration's policies.
Well, on that point, I recall at the conclusion of that particular conversation, he had said, "Look, I'm for you. If I win, we'll do great things together. If I don't win, you guys are going to be in trouble."
Yeah.
So he said, but he asked a really interesting question. It wasn't just like, give me money and give me votes. It was, how do I speak to these people effectively? What can I say?
Fire Gary Gensler day one.
Right. To help get people to open their eyes and be like, oh, maybe I should consider him, And that, I just thought that was an interesting way of approaching it, that was his question. And we said, glad you asked. And we, gave him information and ideas.
Yeah.
And then I think you saw it manifested in some of his tweets, in his speech at last year's Bitcoin conference. And, but even he was surprised by that line.
Oh,
the standing ovation.
Fire Gary Gensler. He had to say it twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it manifest in the administration's policies. Like, I have never dealt with an administration, whether it's the Crypto Council or it's Treasury Department right now, or the SEC with the Crypto Task Force. The way that they're reaching out to this industry to learn and rebuild trust it's unheard of in DC. Like, there's a real intentional effort from this administration. Hey, we want to understand your issues. We want to be a reliable resource for you. We want to be helpful. That's never happened before.
Yeah. Well, when I started, it was during the Biden administration, and people would ask me, because I do federal and state.
Yeah.
And people would ask me, what's the biggest difference between when you're in Washington or you're in, some of your other locations, like Texas.
Yeah.
And the easiest way to describe it was when I went to Texas, the officials would say, what can we do to help? And when I'm in Washington, the question is, why should I let you do this?
If they let you in the door.
Right. If they'll talk to you at all. And now that is, it's totally changed.
Now it's that same Texas philosophy. How can we be helpful?
Yeah.
Teach us. Because we spent years on the sidelines. We didn't pay attention, or we were just bringing enforcement actions left and right. We were hostile. Now teach us, what can we do to be helpful? Tell us about your industry.
Yeah. Well, so Operation Choke Point, just to back up for a second and get in a little weedy. So that was when all the bank regulators in 2023, OCC, the Fed, FDIC, put out a press release, and then they were following on White House statements, basically endorsing it, telling the banking system, financial system, that digital asset related businesses, I forget the exact language, but it was something that vague, are a threat to safety and soundness of the financial system, which then, of
Systemic
course,
risk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which then, of course, caused everybody to lose their bank accounts, because the highly regulated industries are not going to poke their regulator in the eye. And now all of those regulators have revised their guidance in the first 100 days.
It's incredible.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah,
legislation would be nice, but
yeah,
legislation would be nice to prevent it from ever happening again.
We need to codify some of this now into law. I think we have about 10 months to get something done, and then we're in election season again, and then it's midterms, and Republicans could lose the House or they could lose the Senate. We need to make this administration proof. We need to make it politics proof. The only way to do that is codify. God forbid, in 4 years we could have a Harris administration or a Buttigieg administration. They're not going to be pro Bitcoin.
No,
it's not going to be the case. They've made that very clear by their inaction and some of their words. And so we need to codify this as much as possible. What the president is doing is fantastic.
Yeah.
And what the regulators are doing in his administration are fantastic. And rescinding some of that guidance and rebuilding trust. But if we don't codify this, we're going to be playing this game every 4 years.
On that, so we've had some political conversations with candidates this cycle. We've talked about some of that. We've each discussed with Daniel Cameron, who's running for U.S. Senate in Kentucky. I met with Mike Rogers, who's running for U.S. Senate in Michigan. Some of the outside political groups that are going to be involved in this election cycle. For this group of people that we are among right now, it's sort of a sense of jubilation, a victory of how can we put wins on the board right now. Well, we can't get complacent.
No.
So, I can talk about some of the advice that I've been giving them in terms of how to approach the midterms, but how are you thinking about it to make sure that we can future-proof this so that our success doesn't depend on the pendulum swing of one election or another?
Can't be complacent. I keep saying to folks, and people will roll their eyes now because of all the victories we've had that we just walked through, we still haven't done enough yet.
Yeah.
Like, the expectations are sky high. We haven't met those expectations, and we're not going to until we get that legislation. It's funny when I talk to candidates, we just talked about Daniel Cameron. I tell them, be loud on this issue. This might not be the sexiest issue for your constituents, but be loud on it, because there is a reason for every one of your constituents to care about Bitcoin, and they might not know it yet, and it's going to be helpful for you in the long run. We need more champions. We have some great champions that are here. Senator Lummis has been here forever. Whip Emmer, Senator Haggerty that we touched on. We need to build that roster. It needs to be on both sides of the aisle. We don't have enough voices speaking out for this industry yet. It's great that there is this political opportunity now that folks want to get behind it, but I still think there's an education gap where folks don't understand why they're getting behind it yet.
Yeah.
Once they're able, a member of Congress and these senators that are running and these House members that are running, once they're able to have a conversation with their constituents where they can explain why they should care about Bitcoin and why Bitcoin is great for their district or their state or the country, then we'll be in a good place, but we're not there yet.
I think that's great advice. I gave similar but different. But the way I am looking at it is through the prism of what we've done with the Bitcoin Voter Project, where we modeled voters to figure out who are they, who owns Bitcoin, who's that kind of voter, who's Bitcoin curious, what do they care about, what are their values, do they vote? If not, how do we get them to vote? And through that, we learned that the profile is like 18 to 40, really 18 to 30 in age, totally across demographics, across political lines. Most of them consider themselves moderates. Some consider themselves very liberal. Some consider themselves very conservative or libertarian, but they're really all over the place. And I think one of the most telling things that we found in the data was that many of them didn't vote in the last election, or maybe they vote in every other election. They're very, they're not consistent at all, and they're not brand loyal to a political party. Most people, if you voted 2 times in a row for the same political party, you end up kind of getting baked into that voter block and you stay with it for life. This is a voting block where every candidate starts a campaign saying, I need this many votes to win, and here's what I think my coalition will be. So I'm telling these candidates, you can completely rearrange the map. Totally. You can unlock an entirely new group of voters who never voted before, but they'll show up and vote for you if you embrace these things: dissatisfaction with the legacy financial system, their freedom to have empowerment over their own financial future, to own and transact in Bitcoin. I was like, it's pretty simple, but it's huge.
It's huge. I think that advice is really spot on, because I think sometimes we get lost in DC, and I'm a culprit of this. We talk about what the institutions care about. What do the biggest companies care about? And sometimes we end up advocating for the biggest companies instead of the people. And I think too often members of Congress get lost into what their constituents care about. They care about these issues. We talk about their Bitcoin voters are super passionate, or just Bitcoin holders are super passionate if they're not voting.
Right.
We have to go out and we have to talk to the voters directly about these issues. I think we're going to see Bitcoin swing elections for years and years to come.
Yeah.
If we can start talking to the voters directly about this. I tell every member of Congress, and I tell my team this all the time, don't go in and try to learn the tech. I'm not a technologist. I don't understand the tech. I'm not a developer. But talk about how Bitcoin can solve problems like that you talked about, that all of your constituents are facing. That's all you need to do. That'll swing elections for years.
Well, and I think it did. I mean, even CNN agrees.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that segment with Harry Ensign, who I love, with his New York accent. Look at the numbers.
Yeah.
And he was doing a segment on crypto and Trump's activity in the space, and the anchor was like, tell me something else I might not know. And he said, well, I think it swung the election. And he ran through the numbers. And when you think about it, the last several elections were decided by tens of thousands of votes across a few states. It's not a lot. It's not a lot. And if you believe Coinbase's data, I don't think we have any better data, that 50 million Americans own these assets, and they're literally voting their pocketbook. And there was one campaign that came out and spoke to them, and you saw that group of voters vote in a much higher percentage than they had in past elections. I don't think that's a crazy theory. I think that's a completely reasonable analysis of the data, that this voting block will win elections. And at some point, again, back to your point about future-proofing, making sure that our success doesn't depend on one election or another, it'll get to the point where it's, if I can't beat them, I got to join them.
Oh, yeah.
I hope. I don't know.
And it's always why the anti-crypto army to me was nonsensical.
Oh
it was
my
completely
gosh.
asinine. Like
It's
I
crazy.
don't understand running on being anti people's wealth.
Right.
I don't understand how that plays for anyone.
Yeah.
And it didn't play for Democrats.
And one of the hypotheses that we kind of were working off of was that we are here. We know that there is a pro Bitcoin voter
Oh yeah.
that is rabid.
35,000 people here right now.
Yeah, exactly. There really isn't an anti-Bitcoin voter.
No.
So they tried to manifest something through theatrics that just didn't
And through
exist.
fear.
Yes.
It was just fear mongering. And I don't understand how that is effective for the voters. I don't understand how that's effective for the United States. It made no sense to me.
No. And it was all, I think, in service of a central bank digital currency, which seems to be her desired policy outcome. So to get that very dystopian result, you have to eliminate all the private options. It's like healthcare. You just want to get rid of all private insurance so there could be just one single payer public health insurance company. I think she views money in the same way. That's my theory. But
That's my theory. I think her and the anti-crypto army's political ethos is more government is good.
Yeah.
And there needs to be more government control. And so Bitcoin scares the hell out of them.
Right.
Something that grew up in this, libertarian perspective, this outside of government control, some kind of financial asset is against everything they believe in, where they want more and more government because they think government is the great equalizer.
Right.
And so they ran on that and they lost.
Yeah, it's true. Well, probably a couple other topics we could cover. One, the vice president talked about Bitcoin and AI, sort of in the same train of thought. Ryan is doing Bitcoin mining and then sort of transitioning to also do AI because both require large data center infrastructure. I get that, but he ascribed a political ethos to each, and said that like Bitcoin is conservative and AI is liberal. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I haven't heard that before. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think Bitcoin's conservative.
Yeah.
I think Bitcoin is for everyone.
I agree with that. Yeah.
And I haven't thought about AI being liberal.
Yeah.
But I do think there are some censorship issues with AI right now and some misinformation with AI that I think blockchain tech can actually solve.
Yeah.
But that's fascinating. I think we're going to see Bitcoin and AI complement each other instead of compete with each other.
Yeah.
Over the next few years, I think we're thinking about, like you talk about all these AI agents now that people are going to use, and we're transacting digitally. They're not going to use fiat.
No.
We're going to be transacting with Bitcoin when we're using all of this tech. That's how I feel, or just any other stable coin maybe. But I think AI and Bitcoin are going to complement each other in the long run.
Yeah.
That's a funny political dynamic he put out there.
It was just an interesting observation. I think it's from his experience in Silicon Valley that he found that the more Republican-leaning, big tech investors in Silicon Valley were more into Bitcoin, and the more liberal-leaning were more into AI. And I guess if you think, I don't know, command and control or information control or whatever, I don't know what he was getting.
Why do you think Republicans have leaned in harder on Bitcoin?
I do think there's a value proposition there that, just taking Senator Warren's example, she really wants central bank digital currency where, and I would warn the banks, the big banks who are all, acting like her best friend now, that this is like a mafia movie where her goal is she won't be successful. It's a ridiculous proposition, but I think her vision was to kind of ban Bitcoin or eliminate people's ability to use Bitcoin. All right, so that's like hit number one, but she's hiring the banks to be her hitmen, to take out Bitcoin. But then she was going to whack them next. So I do think that it's this. Bitcoin's the opposite of a CBDC. It gives people control over their own financial future. They don't need a bank or a government intermediary. I do think there's something more libertarian, I suppose, and conservative about that. AI being innately about the flow of information and how people consume information. If you look at communist dictatorships, they generally control the media. They control the information that people have access to. So I think at a very high theoretical level, I kind of understand what he was alluding to. But I really do think that the flow of the way that people consume information and the way that they send value
Yeah.
to one another will be somewhat intertwined. It'll be interesting. I'll disagree a little bit on your maybe we will not use fiat anymore someday, but I think that's a ways off if we get there. I think maybe we're looking at a stable coin Bitcoin barbell strategy where you stabilize the nation's finances with Bitcoin, but still have the dollar be the means of exchange primarily. We'll see. First, we can get some tax changes to make that easier, but we'll see. So I want to touch on the Bitcoin AI kind of confluence. Bitcoin AI and energy companies are all going to be married.
Oh yeah,
and that's I think what the future looks like.
You think every Bitcoin company is going, or Bitcoin mining company is going to be an AI company?
Mostly that. I mean, my CEO was on a panel talking about that, and things are heading in that direction.
Makes sense.
But like hybrids,
Yeah.
like they're not going to give up mining. The transaction fees as the network activity increases, transaction fees will increase even as halvings occur, and the value of Bitcoin will go up. So mining will still be a profitable enterprise. The flexibility it gives to energy grids is going to be absolutely necessary for building out the electric infrastructure we need. So mining will still be very prominent. But
what about the reverse? Do you think some of these large data centers right now that maybe are in AI or maybe they're in social media or tech are going to start mining Bitcoin?
Yeah, because I think that an AI model is not learning, generally speaking, at the same velocity. It's not using the same amount of compute all the time. So I don't think we're there yet, but I suspect we'll get to a point where they will want to monetize all of their power assets for more of the time because you're paying for it.
Sure.
Especially, if you've secured that power 24/7 for 10 years, whatever your agreement is, like you're going to want to get the most value out of that asset. Otherwise, you're losing money. So we're not at that place today, but I think we will get there because it only makes economic sense to do so. But so a lot of policy conversations. What can people expect out of Washington, out of the administration? You mentioned sky high expectations. Where are we, and where do we need to get, and how fast can we get there?
Legislation is moving at a pace I've never seen before. The president has made it known he wants to pass 2 bills before August recess. So very ambitious timelines. One is stablecoin legislation, which is moving quickly. We have the Genius Act in the Senate, the Stable Act in the House. Genius Act will be up for a floor vote next week. So that's fantastic. That's led by Senator Hagerty that we talked about. And the other is market structure. And then hopefully we can get to the Bitcoin Act.
Yeah.
The biggest thing I'm watching right now out of DC is not even the legislation, which is critical. We need to codify, as we talked about, to make this future-proof. We talked about this yesterday on a panel. It's what's coming out of an executive order that President Trump signed on day 3 that tasked almost every executive branch agency to come up with the rules that they want to regulate the digital asset industry. And that's going to be in a regulatory Bible that was due 180 days from that executive order, which I think is July 22nd.
Yeah.
Talk about that playbook, I think is going to dictate how the government, how the United States treats this industry for years, decades from now. So I'm waiting patiently for that July 22nd regulatory Bible to come out.
Well, and I think a key part of that, so if you recall, the Biden administration released lengthy executive orders on digital assets and on AI, and neither were received particularly warmly, both of which I think were revoked pretty much immediately when Trump took office. I think one key thing that this administration is doing, which I really want to commend them on, David Sachs and Bo Hines and the cabinet secretaries involved, is they are actively soliciting input. They're saying, well, what do you recommend? Obviously taking their role seriously as representatives of the people, consumer protection, all the public interest, but literally asking the people who know most about these industries, what could we do to make the country competitive? That I think is a recipe for this Bible you're talking about to actually endure, no matter who gets elected next time. We'll see, of course. Hope springs eternal that partisan differences don't get in the way. But
I think it's incredible. I mean, it's been the theme of the conversation and how this administration's tried to rebuild trust. But it's one thing to say, hey, we want to meet with the industry and learn what they're doing. But I think for people watching this, these folks are really sitting down and taking 10 meetings a day with industry leaders, trying to understand, okay, what are the pain points? What is wrong at the SEC? What is wrong at Treasury? What is wrong in Congress that we need? And taking notes and then coming back with feedback.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that plays out and that illustrates itself in this regulatory Bible. And we've got that roadmap for decades.
Yep. The Bitcoin Bible sounds like a pretty good.
I'm shocked that's not a thing right now.
I mean, there's a lot of merch around this place. It might exist.
It's probably here somewhere.
Yeah, it might. Well, listen, closing thoughts. Anything else? What do you want to do for the rest of the conference? What have you taken away already? What do people at home need to know about what we're experiencing here?
I want to win some money.
Yeah,
first and foremost. Beat Scottie Pippen again. No, I just want to talk to as many Bitcoiners as possible. I mean, it is really the coolest gathering. I want to hear what folks are thinking about DC. We obviously live in a DC bubble sometimes, and it's easy to get lost in that. I want to understand what folks are thinking about is what has been coming out of Washington. It is being well received by the general public. I'm hoping it is, and I'm hearing it is. The energy here is incredible. The energy for the policymakers that have been on stage is incredible. So I just want to talk to as many people as possible. It's a surreal experience. If folks are like watching this and be like, I need to be there next year, yes, you should be. It's worth it. You learn a ton. You get to meet all the fellow Bitcoiners. You should come. Hopefully, I don't know if it's in Vegas next year, but
Well, they haven't announced where it's going to be yet. They'll probably announce that by the end.
You should go wherever it is.
Yeah. And I agree. Meeting as many Bitcoiners as possible, reconnecting with old friends, making new friends. If they're still doing it, I hope to get a selfie with the Winklevi twins and their Bitcoin Cybertruck at the Gemini booth.
That's what you can expect here.
Yeah.
Run into the Winklevi and the Cybertruck.
And their Cybertruck, along with, the president's family and some of the weirdest, craziest people that exist on the planet. It's a wild ride. So, you guys should definitely come next time. Thank you for joining us on the Peer-to-Peer Policy Pod, live from Las Vegas, Nevada, at the Rumble Studio here at the Venetian, beautiful resort in Vegas. Thanks for joining us. Follow me on Twitter at MorganSternNJ. Like and subscribe. Send me feedback if you like what you heard. If you want me to talk about other stuff next time, we'll be back with Mike fighting the good fight in Texas while there's still a legislative session going on. Shout out to Zach for working very hard while we are working hard in a different way here in Vegas. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next time on the Peer-to-Peer Policy Pod.